Alex Turner checked his uniform one more time before stepping off the transport ship. The massive space station stretched out before him like a small city floating in the stars. New Geneva was the biggest neutral meeting place in the galaxy, and today it would host the most important peace talks in human history. Alex wiped his sweaty palms on his pants and tried to calm his nerves. He was just a middle-level diplomat from Earth. Most of the other human representatives were older and had much more experience dealing with alien species. Alex had only been working in the diplomatic corps for 3 years, and this was his first major assignment off-world. The weight of representing humanity made his stomach twist with worry. The docking bay was filled with beings from dozens of different worlds. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Alex had to force himself not to stare. Tall, blue-skinned creatures with 4 arms carried glowing devices. Small, furry beings that barely reached his waist chattered in high-pitched voices. Massive reptilian aliens in military uniforms stood guard near their ships. Alex followed the signs toward the main conference center. The hallways were wide enough for even the largest species to move around comfortably. Floating translation devices hovered near the ceiling, broadcasting announcements in hundreds of different languages. The sound created a constant background hum that reminded Alex just how far from home he really was. The opening reception was being held in a huge circular room with windows that showed the stars outside. Alex grabbed a drink from a serving robot and tried to blend in with the crowd. He recognized some of the other human delegates, but most were busy talking to important alien officials. Alex felt out of place and wondered if he should just find a quiet corner to wait until the formal meeting started tomorrow. That was when he saw her. She stood near one of the large windows looking out at the stars. Her skin had a pale silver glow and her ears came to elegant points. Long white hair fell past her shoulders like moonlight. She wore a flowing dress that seemed to change color as she moved. Everything about her suggested grace and ancient wisdom. Alex knew she had to be one of the Sylvani. The elf-like beings were famous throughout the galaxy for their beauty and long lives. Most Sylvani were hundreds of years old and had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Alex had read about their species but had never met one in person. He was still staring when she turned and caught him looking. Instead of being annoyed, she smiled and walked over to him. Her movements were so smooth she seemed to float across the floor. "You must be one of the human delegates," she said. Her voice had a musical quality that made even simple words sound like poetry. "I am Lyra Moonwhisper of the Sylvani Cultural Council." "Alex Turner," he managed to say while trying not to sound as nervous as he felt. "This is my first time at one of these conferences." "How wonderful," Lyra said with genuine warmth. "I have been attending galactic meetings for over 2 centuries, but I still remember the excitement of my first diplomatic gathering. Tell me about your world. I have heard fascinating things about human culture." What started as polite small talk quickly grew into something much deeper. Lyra asked thoughtful questions about human art and music. She wanted to know about human books and movies and what made people on Earth laugh or cry. Alex found himself telling her about his favorite songs and the novels that had shaped his thinking. In return, Lyra shared stories about Sylvani poetry that could take decades to write properly. She described crystal cities that sang in harmony with the wind and forests where the trees held memories going back thousands of years. Her people created art that was meant to last for millennia, and their philosophers spent centuries debating single questions. The hours passed without either of them noticing. Other delegates came and went from the reception, but Alex and Lyra kept talking. He forgot about being nervous and started to relax. Lyra seemed genuinely interested in everything he had to say and never made him feel stupid for not knowing about alien customs. They talked about the differences between their worlds and the similarities between their peoples. Lyra was amazed that humans could form such strong bonds in their short lifespans. Alex was fascinated by how Sylvani culture had remained stable for so many thousands of years. "Your species is quite remarkable," Lyra said as they watched the stars slowly turn outside the window. "Most young races are either too aggressive or too fearful when they first join the galactic community. Humans seem to have found a balance that allows you to make friends while still defending yourselves." Alex felt proud hearing that, but also curious about what other species thought of humans. "What do other aliens say about us?" Lyra smiled in a way that suggested she knew secrets. Many things. Some find your emotional nature confusing while others are fascinated by it. Your ability to adapt and change quickly is both admired and feared. But there is something else that has caught attention recently. What do you mean? The way humans approach relationships and partnerships. Most species have very structured ways of bonding, but humans seem to create connections based on much more complex factors. It has become quite a topic of discussion in certain circles. Alex was not sure what to make of that comment. Before he could ask for more details, he noticed that the reception hall had become almost empty. Most of the other delegates had left hours ago. Only a few small groups remained scattered around the large room. "I should probably let you get some rest," Alex said, even though he did not want their conversation to end. "Tomorrow will be a long day of meetings." Lyra turned to face him directly. Her eyes seemed to glow with their own inner light. For a moment she looked like she was thinking about something important. Then she tilted her head slightly and asked in a casual tone, "Are you single, human?" The question hit Alex like a physical blow. His mind went completely blank and he felt his face turn red. He had been enjoying their intellectual conversation so much that he had not considered it might be leading somewhere more personal. Yes, he stammered, not sure if this was some kind of diplomatic protocol he was supposed to understand or something else entirely. Lyra smiled mysteriously and nodded, as if his answer confirmed something she had been thinking. "Interesting, I thought as much. Sleep well, Alex Turner. I have a feeling this conference will be more eventful than either of us expected." She glided away before Alex could think of anything else to say. He stood there watching her leave and wondering what had just happened. The question kept echoing in his mind as he made his way back to his quarters. Was she asking for diplomatic reasons or personal ones, and what did she mean about the conference being eventful? Alex lay in his narrow bunk staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of their conversation. He had come to the conference, worried about making a good impression on behalf of humanity. Now he was wondering if he had somehow gotten himself into something much more complicated than simple diplomacy. Alex woke up the next morning feeling like he had barely slept. Every time he had started to drift off, he would remember Lyra asking if he was single and wonder what it meant. He got dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform and tried to focus on the important meetings ahead. The main conference hall was impressive with curved walls that seemed to absorb sound and floating platforms where different species could sit according to their needs. Alex took his seat with the other human delegates and tried to pay attention to the opening speeches. But he kept looking around for Lyra and noticed several alien delegates watching him. The morning session covered trade agreements and shipping, routes between different sectors of the galaxy. Alex found it hard to concentrate when he kept catching other beings staring at him. A tall, blue-skinned woman with silver markings kept glancing in his direction. A group of reptilian delegates seemed to be having a quiet discussion while looking his way. During the first break, Alex was surprised when Maya Chen approached him. She was a Zephyrian technology specialist with smooth silver skin and bright blue eyes that seemed to glow from within. Her people were known for being logical and practical in everything they did. "Excuse me," Maya said in a voice that sounded like music played through crystal. "You are Alex Turner from the human delegation, correct? I have been reading your files on human communication systems and find them quite fascinating." Alex was flattered that someone had actually read his technical reports. Most diplomats found that kind of work boring. "Thank you. I spent a lot of time researching how different species prefer to exchange information." "Yes, exactly," Maya said with obvious excitement. "The way humans adapt their communication style based on emotional context rather than pure logic is very interesting. Most species follow strict protocols, but humans seem to improvise based on the situation." They talked about translation technology and how humans had learned to work with different alien mindsets. Maya asked detailed questions about human decision-making processes and seemed particularly interested in how emotions influenced human choices. "Your species has developed quite a reputation for being unpredictable," Maya said with what might have been amusement. "Some find this frustrating, but others see it as a valuable trait in partners and allies." Alex was starting to notice a pattern in these conversations. Partners? Oh yes, Maya replied. There has been considerable discussion about human bonding behaviors in recent months. Your ability to form strong emotional connections quickly is seen as either advantageous or dangerous, depending on the species doing the evaluation. Before Alex could ask what she meant by that, the break ended, and they had to return to their seats. But throughout the rest of the morning session, Alex noticed Maya watching him and occasionally making notes on her electronic tablet. Lunch was served in a smaller dining hall with round tables that mixed delegates from different species. Alex was heading toward an empty table when a powerful voice called out behind him. "Human diplomat," the voice boomed. "Join us." Alex turned to see Zara Voss waving him over to her table. She was a draconian military advisor with dark green scales and golden eyes. Her people were warriors who valued strength and honor above everything else. Alex had read that draconians could be dangerous if they felt disrespected, but were incredibly loyal to those they considered worthy allies. The table was already occupied by several other military representatives from different species. Alex felt nervous sitting among so many professional warriors, but Zara seemed friendly enough. "I have been hearing stories about human military tactics," Zara said while serving herself something that looked like raw meat. "Your people fight with great creativity and emotional fire. Most species follow predictable battle patterns, but humans seem to invent new strategies during combat." Alex tried to explain that human military doctrine emphasized adaptability and quick thinking. The other military delegates listened with interest as he described how human commanders were trained to improvise when their original plans failed. "Fascinating," Zara said with approval. "This emotional unpredictability you mention, is it also present in your personal relationships?" There was that word again. Alex was beginning to think these questions were not random. "I suppose so. Humans tend to follow their hearts as much as their heads when choosing partners." "Excellent," Zara said with what was definitely a predatory smile. "Passion and loyalty are the most important qualities in any relationship, whether military or personal. I respect beings who fight for what they care about." The conversation continued with Zara asking more questions about human concepts of honor and commitment. She seemed particularly interested in how humans chose their mates and whether they fought to defend their families. Alex found himself explaining human marriage customs and the idea of romantic love. After lunch, Alex was walking toward the afternoon sessions when he was approached by Dr. Lisa Brightwater. She was a crystalline scientist whose translucent skin seemed to be made of living gemstone. Her body shifted through different colors as she moved, and Alex could see her internal organs glowing softly beneath the crystal surface. "Mr. Turner," Dr. Brightwater said in a voice that chimed like bells, "I wonder if I might ask you some questions about human biochemistry. I am conducting research into cross-species compatibility, and your people have become quite relevant to my studies." Alex was not sure what kind of compatibility she meant, but agreed to answer her questions. Dr. Brightwater wanted to know about human hormones and emotional responses. She asked about how humans experienced attraction and what physical changes occurred when they formed romantic bonds. "Your species releases fascinating chemical compounds during mating displays," Dr. Brightwater explained, while her skin shifted to a warm golden color. "The combination of adrenaline and oxytocin creates very strong pair bonding that most species achieve through different means." Alex realized that Dr. Brightwater was studying him like a laboratory specimen. She asked increasingly personal questions about human dating rituals and reproductive behaviors. Her skin kept changing colors, which Alex suspected meant something in crystalline body language, but he had no idea what. "I would very much like to continue this research," Dr. Brightwater said as they reached the conference hall. "Perhaps we could arrange a more private setting where I could take some readings while you experience various emotional states." Alex excused himself and hurried to his seat, feeling like he was being hunted by friendly predators. The afternoon session covered territorial disputes and mining rights, but Alex could barely focus. He kept noticing different alien delegates watching him and whispering among themselves. During the final break of the day, Alex found Captain Rita Martinez from the Human Security Detail. She was a tough woman in her 40s who had served in the Space Navy before joining the Diplomatic Corps. Alex trusted her judgment and needed advice from someone who understood alien cultures. "Captain Martinez," Alex said quietly, "can I ask you something weird?" "Shoot, kid," Rita replied while scanning the crowd for potential security threats. "I think some of the alien delegates are hitting on me," Alex said, feeling embarrassed just saying it. "But I am not sure if I am reading the signals right or if this is some kind of diplomatic thing I do not understand." Rita stopped scanning and looked at Alex with surprise. Then she started laughing so hard that several nearby aliens turned to stare. "Oh man," Rita said, wiping tears from her eyes. "You really do not know, do you?" "Know what?" "Alex, you have become something of a celebrity in certain galactic social circles," Rita explained. "Word has gotten around that humans make incredibly devoted and passionate romantic partners. Some species find that very appealing." Alex felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean word has gotten around?" "Think about it," Rita said. "Humans have only been in the galactic community for about 20 years. Most of our early contacts were military or scientific. But recently we have had more cultural exchanges and some humans have formed relationships with other species. And apparently we have developed quite a reputation for being loyal, protective, and emotionally intense partners," Rita continued. "Some alien cultures find human mating behaviors either fascinating or desirable depending on their own relationship. Customs." Alex thought about all the conversations he had been having and suddenly they made perfect sense. "So when Lyra asked if I was single last night, she was probably checking your availability," Rita said with another laugh. "Congratulations, Alex. You have accidentally become eligible Bachelor of the Year among multiple alien species." Alex looked around the conference hall and noticed Maya Chen watching him from across the room. Dr. Brightwater was talking to some colleagues while occasionally glancing his way. Even Zara Voss seemed to be paying attention to his conversation with Rita. "What am I supposed to do about this?" Alex asked, feeling overwhelmed. "That depends," Rita said with a grin. "Are you actually interested in any of them, or are you just here to do your job?" Alex did not have an answer for that question. He had come to the conference focused entirely on representing humanity well in the peace negotiations. The idea that he might be doing that in a completely different way than he had planned was both exciting and terrifying. The next few days at the conference became increasingly strange for Alex. What had started as simple diplomatic meetings turned into something that felt more like navigating a complex social maze. Every conversation seemed to have hidden meanings, and every interaction left him more confused about alien relationship customs. Lyra continued seeking him out for their evening talks. After the formal sessions ended each day, she would find him in the observation lounges or quiet corridors. Their conversations had grown deeper and more personal as she shared stories about Silvani culture that few outsiders ever heard. "On my world, we have a concept called soul bonding," Lyra explained as they sat watching the stars rotate slowly outside the station windows. "When two beings find perfect compatibility, their life forces can merge, creating a connection that lasts for millennia." Alex found the idea both beautiful and overwhelming. "How do you know if you have found someone compatible?" "It usually takes decades or even centuries to determine," Lyra said with a thoughtful expression. "Silvani courtship involves sharing poetry, music, and philosophical discussions until both parties understand each other completely. Only then can true bonding occur." "That sounds very different from human relationships," Alex admitted. "Most humans fall in love quickly based on attraction and emotional connection, rather than careful evaluation." Lyra turned to study his face, with her glowing eyes. "Yes, that is what makes your species so fascinating. You form powerful bonds based on instinct and feeling rather than logic and time. Some of my people wonder if human emotional intensity could create even stronger connections than our traditional methods." The way she said it made Alex think she might be suggesting something specific, but he was not sure how to respond. Before he could figure out what to say, Lyra changed the subject to Silvani poetry, leaving him wondering if he had missed an important moment. Maya Chen had also been spending more time with him between official meetings. She would appear with technical questions about human communication systems, or suggestions for improving the translation protocols being used at the conference. But Alex was starting to realize her real interest lay elsewhere. "I have been studying your behavioral patterns," Maya announced one morning as they reviewed some technical specifications. "Human emotional responses follow fascinating probability curves that defy most predictive models." "Is that good or bad?" Alex asked while trying to focus on the boring technical documents. "Neither," Maya replied with excitement in her crystalline voice. "It is simply unique. Most species either follow completely logical mating selection criteria or rely entirely on genetic programming. Humans seem to use a complex mixture of factors that creates highly unpredictable but apparently successful pair bonding." Alex was getting used to these clinical discussions about human romance. "Successful in what way?" "Human marriages last longer on average than relationships in most other species," Maya explained while pulling up charts on her tablet. "Despite choosing partners based on emotional criteria, rather than compatibility testing, your divorce rates are actually quite low compared to galactic averages." "Maybe love really does conquer all," Alex said jokingly. Maya stared at him with intense focus. "Love. Yes, that is the variable I've been trying to quantify. Could you explain the exact biochemical and emotional processes involved when a human experiences this love phenomenon?" Before Alex could attempt to explain something he did not fully understand himself, they were interrupted by a loud voice calling his name. Zara Voss approached their table with her usual confident stride. The draconian warrior was wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed under the station lighting. "Human Alex," Zara announced loudly enough for most of the nearby delegates to hear. "I challenge you to honorable combat." Alex felt his blood turn cold. He had read about draconian challenge rituals and knew they could be deadly serious. "I am sorry, but I think there has been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Zara said with what might have been amusement. "This is a formal courtship challenge. In draconian culture, a warrior proves their worthiness by defeating potential mates in single combat." Alex looked around and noticed that other delegates had stopped their conversations to watch what was happening. Maya looked fascinated while several other aliens seemed to be placing bets on the outcome. "I appreciate the honor," Alex said carefully, "but humans do not usually fight to determine romantic compatibility." "Exactly why this will be interesting," Zara replied with obvious satisfaction. "Your people are known for creative battle tactics and fighting with emotional passion. I wish to see if these stories are true." Alex realized he was trapped in a cultural situation he did not understand. Refusing might insult Zara and damage human relations with the draconian military, but accepting could result in serious injury, or worse. "Perhaps we could find a non-violent way to test compatibility," Alex suggested hopefully. Zara looked disappointed but nodded slowly. "Very well. Draconians also evaluate potential mates based on loyalty and protective instincts. If you will not fight me directly, then prove your worthiness by defending something you care about." Alex was not sure what she meant but agreed it. Sounded better than hand-to-hand combat with a trained warrior. Zara smiled mysteriously and said she would arrange an appropriate test before walking away with obvious satisfaction. Dr. Lisa Brightwater chose that moment to appear at their table, carrying what looked like a portable laboratory. Her crystalline skin was shifting through excited colors that Alex was beginning to recognize as her version of enthusiasm. "Perfect timing," Dr. Brightwater announced while setting up her equipment. "I would like to take some readings while you experience stress and arousal from the mating challenge display." "It was not a mating challenge," Alex protested while wondering how his life had become so complicated. "It was a cultural misunderstanding." "Even better," Dr. Brightwater replied while attaching sensors to her devices. "Cross-cultural confusion should produce fascinating neurochemical responses. Please describe your current emotional state while I calibrate these instruments." Alex looked at Maya, who was watching everything with scientific interest and taking notes on her tablet. Dr. Brightwater was preparing to scan him with devices he did not recognize. Other delegates throughout the dining area were still watching and whispering among themselves. "I think I need some air," Alex said while standing up quickly. He walked out of the dining hall and headed toward one of the observation decks, hoping to find some peace and quiet. But even there, he could not escape the growing complications of his situation. Within minutes, Lyra appeared beside him, looking concerned. "I heard about Zara's challenge," Lyra said gently. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," Alex replied, though he was not sure that was true. "I just did not expect diplomatic conferences to involve combat challenges and scientific experiments." Lyra smiled with understanding. Each species approaches relationships according to their own cultural framework. Draconians see courtship as a test of strength and worthiness. Crystallians view it as a research opportunity to be studied and quantified. Zephyrians analyze compatibility through logical evaluation. "What about Sylvani?" Alex asked. "We believe in deep intellectual and spiritual connection developed over long periods of time," Lyra explained. "True compatibility cannot be rushed or forced. It must grow naturally through shared experiences and mutual understanding." Alex found her perspective much more appealing than the alternatives. "That sounds much more reasonable." "Perhaps," Lyra said thoughtfully. "But I find myself curious about the human approach. Your ability to form strong bonds quickly based on emotional connection is quite remarkable. It suggests a level of trust and vulnerability that most species spend centuries developing." The way she was looking at him made Alex think their evening conversations might have been leading somewhere specific. But before he could figure out how to respond, an announcement echoed through the station calling all delegates to an emergency session. As they walked back toward the conference hall, Alex realized that his personal complications were becoming intertwined with his professional responsibilities. The other species were not just interested in him as an individual, but as a representative of humanity and human relationship customs. "Lyra," Alex said as they approached the meeting room, "what exactly do other species think about humans when it comes to relationships?" "Many things," she replied with a mysterious smile. "But mostly they think you might have discovered something the rest of us have been missing. The question is whether human emotional bonds are strong enough to bridge the gaps between completely different species and cultures." Alex walked into the emergency session wondering if he was about to find out the answer to that question, whether he wanted to or not. The emergency session had been called because the peace negotiations were falling apart. A major trade dispute between the Zephyrians and Draconians had escalated into threats of military action. Both sides were refusing to compromise, and the other species were choosing sides based on their own interests. Alex sat with the human delegation watching senior diplomats from dozens of worlds argue in increasingly hostile terms. The Zephyrians insisted that all trade agreements should be based on logical cost-benefit analysis, with no consideration for emotional factors. The Draconians demanded that honor and traditional relationships be respected, even if they were not economically efficient. "This is exactly what we feared would happen," Captain Martinez whispered to Alex during a brief recess. "When different species try to work together, their fundamental differences in thinking eventually cause conflicts." Alex watched Maya Chen, arguing with Zara Voss in the corner of the room. Their discussion was getting louder and more heated as each tried to explain why their approach to trade was superior. Other delegates were forming similar groups based on their cultural similarities, rather than looking for common ground. Dr. Brightwater was taking readings with her instruments and seemed more interested in studying the emotional dynamics of the EI conflict than helping to resolve it. Lyra stood alone near the windows, looking sad as she watched the alliance she had hoped for crumble into argument and mistrust. As Alex observed the chaos, he started to notice patterns in how each species was responding to the crisis. The Zephyrians wanted to solve everything through data analysis and logical frameworks. The Draconians insisted on maintaining honor and traditional hierarchies. The Crystallians treated it like a research opportunity. The Sylvani seemed paralyzed by the complexity of finding solutions that would work for everyone. But Alex also realized that despite their different approaches, all the species wanted the same basic things. They wanted security for their people, prosperity for their worlds, and respect for their cultures. The problem was that each group was so focused on their own methods that they could not see past their differences to find shared goals. During the next break, Alex approached the senior human diplomat. "Sir, I have an idea that might help resolve this conflict. Ambassador Williams looked tired and frustrated. At this point, I am willing to try anything. What do you have in mind? Instead of trying to force everyone to agree on trade details, what if we focused on relationship building first? Alex suggested. Each species has different ways of forming partnerships, but maybe we can find common ground by sharing those approaches instead of arguing about which one is correct. Relationship building? Ambassador Williams looked skeptical. This is supposed to be about trade agreements and territorial boundaries. But trade and territory are really about trust and cooperation, Alex explained. And every species here has their own way of building those things. What if we let each group demonstrate their approach instead of trying to force everyone into the same framework? Ambassador Williams considered this for a moment. You want to turn a trade negotiation into some kind of cultural exchange? Yes, sir, Alex said with growing confidence. Humans are good at adapting to different approaches and finding ways to work with various personalities. Maybe that is exactly what this situation needs. Ambassador Williams looked around at the arguing delegates and the deadlocked negotiations. It certainly cannot make things worse. You have my permission to try. Alex spent the rest of the break talking to delegates from different species. He suggested that instead of the formal dinner planned for that evening, they hold a cultural demonstration where each group could share their approach to building partnerships and cooperation. To his surprise, most of the delegates agreed. The Zephyrians were interested in presenting their logical frameworks. The Draconians wanted to show their honor-based traditions. Dr. Brightwater saw it as a research opportunity. Lyra thought it might help everyone understand each other better. That evening, the main conference hall was transformed into a cultural celebration instead of a formal diplomatic dinner. Each species set up displays showing how their people approached relationships, cooperation, and partnership building. The Sylvani went first with a harmony ritual, where multiple voices blended together to create music that was more beautiful than any single singer could produce alone. Lyra explained how their culture believed that true partnership required each individual to contribute their unique gifts while supporting the whole group. The Zephyrians followed with a demonstration of their compatibility analysis systems. Maya showed how they used detailed personality profiles and logical matching algorithms to create partnerships that would be stable and productive over long periods of time. The Draconians presented a ceremony of loyalty oaths where warriors pledged to defend their allies even at the cost of their own lives. Zara spoke passionately about how true strength came from the bonds between people who trusted each other completely. Dr. Brightwater and the other Crystallians shared their research into the biochemical and emotional factors that made relationships successful across different species. She showed how studying partnership patterns could help everyone build stronger connections. When it came time for the humans to present their approach, Alex felt nervous. The other species had impressive traditions and scientific systems. Humans seemed chaotic and disorganized by comparison. But as Alex stood before the assembled delegates, he realized that maybe chaos was exactly what made humans special. Instead of following rigid traditions or logical formulas, humans built relationships through shared experiences, mutual support, and the willingness to be vulnerable with each other. Humans form partnerships by taking risks, Alex began. We meet someone new, and instead of analyzing them for years or testing them through combat, we simply choose to trust them. We share our fears and hopes and dreams with people we barely know because we believe the connection is worth the possibility of being hurt. Alex talked about how humans had learned to work with dozens of different alien species by adapting their communication styles and finding common interests despite vast cultural differences. He explained how human marriages lasted not because they were perfectly logical matches, but because both people committed to growing and changing together over time. We make mistakes constantly, Alex continued. We choose partners for emotional reasons that do not always make sense. We trust people who sometimes disappoint us. We try to build relationships across differences that seem impossible to bridge, but we keep trying because we believe that connecting with others is what makes life meaningful. As Alex spoke, he noticed that the arguing and tension from earlier in the day had completely disappeared. The delegates were listening with genuine interest, and many seemed to be reconsidering their own approaches to partnership and cooperation. The amazing thing is that this messy human approach actually works, Alex concluded. Not because it is perfect, but because it is flexible enough to adapt to any situation and strong enough to survive mistakes and disagreements. Maybe that is what we need for these negotiations. Not a perfect system that everyone has to follow, but a flexible approach that lets each species contribute their strengths while supporting the common goals we all share. When Alex finished speaking, the hall was completely quiet for several moments. Then Lyra started a slow rhythmic clapping that the other Sylvani joined. The Draconians began pounding their fists on tables in approval. Even the logical Zephyrians seemed impressed with the practical applications of Alex's ideas. Zara Voss stood up and addressed the entire assembly. The human speaks wisdom. True strength comes not from forcing others to follow our ways, but from finding ways to fight together, despite our differences. Maya Chen nodded in agreement. Human adaptive partnership strategies could provide the framework for sustainable long-term cooperation between multiple species with different optimization priorities. Dr. Brightwater was practically glowing with excitement. The emotional and cultural bonding processes described could create unprecedented levels of interspecies cooperation if properly implemented. But it was Lyra who provided the final insight that tied everything together. Each species has developed their own path to partnership and cooperation, but perhaps the human gift is the ability to walk on multiple paths simultaneously. That flexibility could be the key to building alliances that are stronger than any single approach could create. As the evening continued, the delegates began working together instead of arguing. The Zephyrians provided logical frameworks for the trade agreements, while the Draconians ensured that honor and traditional relationships were respected. The Crystallians offered research into what approaches would work best for different species combinations, while the Sylvani helped everyone understand the long-term implications of their decisions. Alex watched the transformation with amazement. By focusing on relationship building instead of technical details, the delegates had found ways to address all the major concerns that had been causing conflicts. More importantly, they had started to see each other as partners working toward common goals rather than competitors fighting over limited resources. By the end of the evening, preliminary agreements had been reached on most of the major issues that had seemed dim. The peace conference concluded 3 days later, with agreements that exceeded everyone's expectations. The breakthrough approach that Alex had suggested became the foundation for new diplomatic protocols that would be used in future negotiations between different species. But as the formal meetings ended, Alex still faced the personal complications that had been building throughout the week. He had managed to help resolve the galactic trade disputes, but he still did not know what to do about the romantic interest he had apparently generated among multiple alien species. The situation had become even more complex because he genuinely liked and respected each of the women who had been pursuing him. On the final morning, Alex decided he needed to address each relationship directly instead of hoping the problems would resolve themselves. He started by looking for Lyra in their usual meeting place near the observation windows. She was already there watching the stars and seemed to be expecting him. "I thought you might want to talk before we all return to our respective worlds," she said with her usual gentle smile. "I have been thinking about our conversations this week," Alex began carefully. "I want you to know how much I have enjoyed getting to know you and learning about Sylvani culture. But you are concerned about the expectations I may have developed." Lyra finished for him with understanding in her voice. Alex felt relieved that she was making this easier. "I do not want to hurt your feelings or damage the friendship we have built." Lyra turned to face him with her glowing eyes full of warmth, rather than disappointment. "Alex, you have given me something more valuable than romance. You have shown me that deep connections can form quickly when two people are genuinely open with each other. That insight will influence Sylvani relationship customs for centuries to come. So you are not upset that I cannot offer you the kind of soul bond your people value?" "Who says you cannot?" Lyra replied with a mysterious smile. "Soul bonds are about intellectual and emotional compatibility, not physical proximity. The friendship we have built this week could easily grow into something deeper, given enough time and shared experiences." Alex realized she was offering him a long-term possibility rather than demanding an immediate commitment. You would be willing to let a relationship develop slowly over years or even decades? I've been alive for over 300 years, Lyra said with amusement. What humans call a long-distance relationship across star systems seems quite manageable from my perspective. Besides, your diplomatic career will likely bring you back to this region of space regularly. Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Instead of feeling pressured to make an immediate choice, he was being offered the chance to explore a genuine connection at a pace that worked for both of them. His next conversation was with Maya Chen, who he found in the Technology Center reviewing the communication protocols they had developed during the conference. She looked up from her work when he approached with her usual expression of scientific curiosity. "I wanted to thank you for all your help with the technical aspects of the negotiations," Alex said. "And I also wanted to clarify some things about our personal interactions." Maya set down her tablet and gave him her full attention. "You are concerned that I have developed romantic interest in you based on my research into human mating behaviors." "Something like that," Alex admitted. "I am not sure if you see me as a person or as a research subject." Maya considered this question with the same logical approach she applied to everything else. "Initially, you were primarily a research subject, but as our conversations continued, I began to appreciate your individual qualities beyond your species' characteristics. And now? Now I find myself genuinely attracted to your adaptability and emotional intelligence," Maya said with what might have been embarrassment. "It appears that studying human romantic responses has caused me to experience them myself." Alex was touched by her honesty. "What would you want from a relationship?" "I am not certain," Maya replied thoughtfully. "Zephyrian partnerships are typically arranged based on logical compatibility analysis. But my interactions with you suggest that emotional connections might provide benefits that pure logic cannot predict. Would you be interested in exploring that possibility slowly through continued friendship and communication?" Maya brightened considerably. "That approach would allow me to gather more data on human relationship development while experiencing the process myself. It would be both personally and scientifically valuable." Alex was starting to see a pattern. Instead of demanding immediate romantic commitment, each of these remarkable women seemed interested in building genuine connections that could grow over time. Finding Zara Voss required a trip to the station's training facilities where she was engaged in combat practice with some of the other Draconian delegates. She noticed Alex watching and finished her sparring match with impressive displays of skill and strength. "Human Alex," Zara called out while toweling off the sweat from her workout. "Have you come to accept my courtship challenge after all?" "Actually, I came to talk about what that challenge means," Alex replied. "I want to understand Draconian customs better before I give you a final answer." Zara seemed pleased by his directness. Draconian courtship challenges serve multiple purposes. They test physical capability, tactical thinking, and the willingness to fight for what matters. But the most important element is demonstrating protective instincts toward potential mates and their interests. So it is not really about defeating someone in combat? Combat is one way to prove worthiness, Zara explained. But there are others. During this conference, you fought to protect the peace negotiations when they were threatened by cultural conflicts. You used human tactical creativity to find solutions that stronger species had missed. That shows the kind of protective strength Draconians value in partners. Alex was surprised to learn that he had apparently passed her test without realizing it. "Does that mean you consider me a worthy potential mate?" "It means I consider you worthy of respect and friendship," Zara replied with obvious satisfaction. "Whether that could grow into something more would depend on whether we could find ways to bridge the differences between our cultures. What kind of relationship would work between a human and a Draconian?" Zara thought about this while putting away her training weapons. "Probably something unconventional by both species standards. Long-distance partnerships maintained through regular combat training exchanges and joint missions where we could fight side by side for common causes." Alex found the idea both exciting and terrifying. Zara was offering him the chance to be part of something larger than himself, while maintaining his human identity and values. His final conversation was with Dr. Lisa Brightwater, who he found in her temporary laboratory, analyzing data from the cultural exchange evening. Her crystalline skin was shifting through colors that Alex had learned indicated deep concentration. "Dr. Brightwater," Alex said carefully, "could we discuss your research into human compatibility with other species?" She looked up from her instruments with immediate interest. "Of course, I have gathered fascinating data about your emotional and biochemical responses to cross-cultural romantic stimuli." "That is actually what I wanted to address," Alex said. "I want to make sure you see me as a person rather than just a research subject." Dr. Brightwater's skin shifted to what Alex thought might be embarrassment. "I apologize if my scientific approach seemed impersonal. Crystalline culture tends to express interest through research and analysis rather than emotional displays." "So your studies were a form of courtship?" "In part," she admitted, "but they also represent genuine scientific curiosity about how different species might form successful partnerships. Your responses suggest that humans could indeed form stable bonds with a wide variety of alien species." "What would that mean practically?" "It would mean that interspecies relationships might be more viable than previously thought," Dr. Brightwater explained with growing excitement. "If humans can adapt their bonding mechanisms to work with different alien psychology and biochemistry, it could revolutionize how the galactic community approaches cooperation and alliance building." Alex realized that Dr. Brightwater was offering him the chance to be part of groundbreaking research that could benefit everyone. But she was also expressing personal interest in ways that made sense according to her culture. As Alex prepared to leave the station, he reflected on everything that had happened during the week. Instead of the simple diplomatic mission he had expected, he had found himself at the center of multiple potential relationships that could reshape how different species interacted with each other. But rather than feeling overwhelmed by choices, he now felt excited about possibilities. Lyra had offered him intellectual and spiritual connection that could deepen over centuries. Maya wanted to explore emotional bonds through logical analysis and shared experiences. Zara was interested in partnerships built around common causes and mutual protection. Dr. Brightwater saw opportunities for research that could benefit both personal relationships and galactic diplomacy. Most importantly, none of them were demanding that he choose immediately or exclusively. They seemed to understand that human relationships could take many different forms, and that meaningful connections did not require traditional romantic structure.